All right. So my name is Jeremy Cortez. This is podcast number one, first of many. And I am very, very privileged to be talking to a good friend of mine, David Orlando. He tells me that this is his first podcast too. This is my first podcast. So we are going to fumble forward together, brother.
Awesome. I'm ready.
All right. So the topic and theme currently, this may pivot over time, is parenting and entrepreneurship. And I've always been fascinated with this because my personal experience has always been that as parents, we actually have more skill sets in business than we actually can see. And my mission for this right now is to interview and connect with people who have succeeded, at least in my eyes, in their professions, and who are also parents and who've kind of, for lack of a better term, figured out the equation. So, Mr. David, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? What kind of practice do you do? Where are you from? How many kids do you have? What's your favorite color and all that good stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like Jeremy said, my name is David Orlando. I am a chiropractor here in Atlanta, Georgia. I have two absolutely amazing kids. My son is Andrew. He's 25. My daughter is 13. She'll be 14 in September, Malia. They are my greatest blessings by far. And I think just as an intro to all of this, I think that they are a true lesson in understanding not only life, but business and entrepreneurship. I think you learn a lot from, for anyone who's not a parent, they don't know. For those of you who are parents, you know. As I always say, they don't come in instruction manuals, but you live and learn, and hopefully you learn the positive of most of it. So again, I'm David Orlando. I live in Woodstock, Georgia. I have an office in Woodstock, Georgia, and Buckhead, Georgia. And my favorite color is purple by far. I got a funny story about that. I love to exercise. I'm passionate about health and staying healthy. I do a lot of yoga. I do a lot of weightlifting, and I have a very unique diet. But other than that, that's a general summary of me.
Awesome. And it's funny. Okay, I have to share my funny story. I met you 3 years ago. This guy looked like I met him at the gym. I actually didn't meet him at the gym. I first saw him I saw you at the gym, and you were just ripped beyond belief, and you looked like you could bench 1 billion pounds on it. But you were stretching, and you were just flexible as anything. And I'm like, I did not see that coming. So I'm like, you're looking in the mirror and you're folded into a pretzel. And I'm like, I didn't know that was possible. And so, I remember this like it was yesterday. So I saw this, I'm like, God, that's so fascinating. And then I'm at the pool area. So just a backstory, we were both at this seminar called Business Mastery by Tony Robbins in Las Vegas. And we stayed at the same hotel, and I'm at poolside, and I think it was like the last day. And you were outside just with your notebook and kind of just like before the day started. I'm like, okay, I got to meet this guy. Like, I'm like, this guy can bench 1 billion pounds and he's flex. I'm like, I got to meet him. Like, so my spider sense is telling me I got to meet this guy. And so I just walked up to you and I said, hi, I'm Jeremy. You're amazing. Can I meet you for a second? And that was 3 years ago.
I do remember like it was yesterday. It was crazy. And it's crazy how things like that happen. But, probably 5 years ago, if you would have saw me, I wouldn't have been able to do any of those stretches. So it's an evolution in understanding that in life, and it comes from sort of an Asian perspective, that there's the yin and yang, and I think I spent most of my life too much in the yang. And so as you get older, you realize you got to balance out a little, and the yin part sort of allowed me to get into that flexibility. So again, it's all about growing as you get older, as you get wiser, as you want to be more fulfilled in your life, to find new things that you need to improve upon.
It's funny you say that. I maybe about a month ago, I read David Goggins's "You Can't Hurt Me." Have you ever read that book? That guy's a maniac.
He's, like above anybody I've ever seen.
Woo. I'm reading every other chapter and I'm like, I feel like I need to work out right now. I'm like, he's doing marathons and ultras and this and buds. And I'm like, okay, I really need, but then what shocked me the most was at the end when I don't know if you read the book, but at the end he talks about stretching.
Hmm.
And he said, he couldn't do, like, his body was failing him, and he couldn't do it, and he just started stretching. And he said that it would have to take him more than 100 hours to become normal. And I'm like, okay, this guy who's just badass personified is learning about stretching, and now this is the beginning of his life. And that's what got me. And because of that, I actually started stretching. This was about a
Awesome.
month ago.
Yes, good. I'm glad to hear that, Jeremy. So I also say, a flexible body is a flexible mind. And I've realized that through my own self, because prior to that, when I was a lot bigger, maybe even a little bit stronger, my mind was a little more stiff because my mind wasn't as flexible. When you open up your body and become more flexible, your mind becomes more flexible and allows you to open up to more opportunities, in my opinion.
I'm starting to see that. And like, my goals are very incremental. They're humble. It's like, okay, I'm closer to my toes.
That's all you got to do.
Awesome.
That's all you got
It's
to do.
good
That's the
enough.
issue with it. The issue with it is that most people go into a yoga class and they look at everybody around them and think, there's no way I could ever do that. And I tell my patients the same thing. It would be like, somebody who's not in shape and saying, hey, we're going to climb this big mountain today. We're never going to climb the mountain today. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to take incremental steps, and I'm going to hold your hand, and we're going to get there. And in about 3-4 days, we're going to be at the top, and you're going to wonder, how did we ever get there? But you can't look at the whole thing, because people get intimidated and they don't want to take the first step. We just got to take the first step and start moving forward, and not compare yourself to anybody else except yourself.
Well, okay. So it's so funny. I can say that I know that. But yesterday I was just comparing myself to somebody else, and there's
Yeah.
this weight, that ego carries, whether you call it ego or self or whatever the case, where it's just this, I'm not good enough, it's going to take too long. And the incremental steps are just so easy to say, but it's like, it's hard for us to kind of embody in the beginning.
Yes. It's a
Like,
challenge. It is a challenge. And I think Tony teaches one of the best lines he ever says: if you stay in your head, you're dead.
yeah.
Right. So I use that all the time, because what happens is we tend to go back to our head, which I think what you're talking about is sort of our ego, and it's the selfishness. And as soon as that goes to my head, I say, get out of my head. Just don't think, and use what Nike's slogan has always been: just do it. Because if you start thinking about it, and I kind of struggle with the analytical mind that I have, that I just want to figure everything out. Everything's got to work in an equation. And then where I just let things go. And I think it's a progression over time. And one of the things I talked about recently, since Mike Tyson is coming back,
Yeah.
fighting and everything, I say, this coronavirus and everything that's going on, and just life in general, is almost like you're having a heavyweight fight with Mike Tyson. And you're like, I can fight this guy, Then all of a sudden he knocks you out, and you go, damn, right? You get back up and you're like, I can do this. And he knocks you out again. Then sooner or later you say to yourself, you know what? Mike Tyson is too good of a boxer for me. Okay. So I am not going to box him, because if I box him, I'm going to lose. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to develop my grappling skills and my jujitsu skills, because I got a funny feeling that he doesn't know how to do that. He's going to kill me in boxing, but I'm going to get better at wrestling and grappling, okay? Because there's certain things we have to look at and be realistic about. And in life, what happens is when you get knocked out enough times, you go, okay, this is just telling me to go in a different direction. And most of the time, we just keep going and getting knocked out, and keep going and getting knocked out. You're like, well, that isn't working. I think there's another way to take Mike Tyson out, and it's probably not boxing.
Okay, I'm gonna go on record by saying I'm probably gonna steal that. That's a great analogy.
You can feel it. I got so many, I got so much stuff in my head that I can just spew out. Just because, and again, with all due respect to you, I know it was your birthday, so happy birthday, Jeremy.
Thank
It was
you.
just what, a week ago?
A week. What's today? The 21st. So last Thursday. So the 16th,
Yeah,
whenever that was. Yeah.
not even a week ago.
Yeah.
And from your age to my age was a huge growth. And every year should be a growth. And I have this adage that 20s are physical, 30s are emotional, 40s start to get more spiritual, and then when you hit your 50s, you start putting it all together. And it doesn't make any sense until you go through it. When you look back and go, wow, that's what I was doing in my 20s. And wow, I was so emotional in my 30s.
Yes,
I was
I'm on
up and
track.
down. Yes, I was up and down all over the place. Then in the 40s, like I've always kind of believed in God and a special power and being religious or spiritual is your own personal choice. But in my 40s, I started saying, you know, there's got to be someone else moving all these parts. There just has to be. You know, and that's for everybody's personal decision to make. But at 40s, I started really getting a little more into it. Then as you get to 50s, you're like, oh, no. I'm not questioning this anymore. I'm just allowing it. And it opens up a whole new world. And that's the exciting part about living and going through these stages of your life.
Okay, so the two things came up for me when I heard that. It's like, number one, where does the financial come into that? Because we're talking about business
Yeah.
throughout.
Yeah.
And,
Okay. So the financial, and I guess we can circle back around to the topic of this because we're going to go out a really long rabbit hole if we go this
I'm
direction.
okay with that. I'm okay with opening Pandora's box.
I've got. Well, I don't want to take over, but I got so much to say about raising children and the parallels of running businesses because there is so much. I use this all the time. So when you asked me to do this podcast, I'm like, oh my God, I talk about this in my meetings all the time, and I do it respectfully, right? It's not like I want to say my employees are my children, but they're representations of a family. I wouldn't call them my children because that may be a little disrespectful. They're not really my children, but there's so much parallels to that. You know what I mean? And so to answer your question about where's the financial fit into all of this, it fits into all of it. And the reason it fits into all of it is that if you're chasing the money, you never really find it. If you're chasing the money, you never really find it, in my opinion. If you're chasing service and your purpose in this life, then money just shows up. It just shows up. That's been my philosophy this whole time. And I'm not going to say that the whole time money has been an easy thing to come by, but it always seems to come back when you really get back to your true purpose for being here. So then it begs the question, what is your true purpose for being here? And people always question that. And just the fact that you're asking that question means you're on the right direction because it will come to you. It will come to you.
I'm in that place right now. So I'm 38. I'm still in the emotional stage of life.
Yep. At least that's my philosophy of life. I don't know if it's necessarily true.
I like it. Let's roll with it. You know, it's just like I've been an emotional roller coaster. I've had actually my darkest days about a year ago,
Uh-huh.
and I'm coming out of it. And you know, I want to build and grow. I also wanted to. So before I forget, because I will forget about this, I loved what you. So when you said that, it's like approaching the uh, coronavirus and how we're on lockdown and there's all this uncertainty. And you talked about how, okay, coronavirus is Mike Tyson. We're trying to try to go at it head on. And what you're talking about is pivoting strategies.
Yes.
So what we've known before was doing X, Y, and Z. So I'll give you an example. So I think we talked about this in a very short time, is that my last business was photography. But like Tony said, winter was coming for the past 5 years. He's been saying winter is coming.
Yeah, winter is coming. I don't think he thought it was going to be this much of a blizzard, but he said winter is coming.
Yeah. Well, you kind of think about it. When winter comes, it's usually in the form of something so disastrous that it's like no one saw this coming, whether it was the, financial crisis, whether it was the dot-com bubbles, whatever the case. It was just something that was just so egregious that it's like no one saw it coming. But since it's here, we might as well reset the economy anyways and like go back to zero. And so when he kept on saying that, I said to myself, okay, one of the first things that happens in photography or in business is that when a recession hits, what's the first thing that people cut? It's marketing. And me being a marketing photographer, I knew that photography was going to be a dead stick and is going to be a non-movement. And so I said, okay, well, what can I create and pivot to? And so I was blessed with this foresight. And that's why, I have the book and why I'm actually starting this podcast now, because this was my solution to pivoting.
Awesome.
how can you get to a place where now that you see that what you currently are doing, so first we have to be aware that what we're currently doing is not working, or it's
Mhm.
no longer going to work with the current environment. Okay, so you box amateur fighters, now you fight Mike Tyson. What you're currently doing is no longer working,
Mhm.
and you have to change strategies. How do you go about finding the next strategy? Because I feel that
Yeah,
that's where a lot of people are now, or after, the pandemic, money and unemployment, and like people have to go back to work and all this stuff is going to be happening, but lockdown or some type of restriction. So normal is no longer going to be normal. And there's going to be the sense of, okay, I've been doing this for such a long time. How do I get from there to understanding where I need to go individually to pivot?
yeah, and I think it really comes from a place of what did you do up to that point to be successful? And you use those strategies to open your mind to new possibilities. And I just want to say this because I've been saying this to my patients and people I know. People say, well, we're never going to go back to normal after this. My response to that is it possible that our new normal could be actually better than our old normal? Is that possible? See, you're shaking your head saying, yeah, it's possible. So the focus we put our minds on is where we go. Where our focus goes, our energy flows. So if we're focusing on, there's a possibility that our new normal may be even better than it was before. I don't believe in any losses. There's only lessons. So when we typically we don't make changes until something knocks us out. And then to answer your question, where do we go? I don't have the answer except for one thing that I believe in wholeheartedly. The greater the why, the greater the comply. If you have a strong enough why you're doing something, you will figure it out. You have to have a strong why. If your kid's life depended on it, what wouldn't you do? And it's amazing when you go with that sort of mindset and attitude, how the universe, when you're sitting in the shower or you're up at 2 o'clock in the morning, these randomly creative ideas come into your mind and go, holy crap, I never thought of that. Why don't we do this? Let me give you an example of this whole thing. So obviously I'm in an office, we're a healthcare office, we're considered an essential business, so patients can still come in, but guess what?
No
A
one's
lot of
coming
people
in.
didn't want to come in, right? Again, you're like, ah, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Take a breath and just know that the service we provide, people want. How can we get it to them? Well, thank God for things like you, the technology people, and thank God that President Trump, regardless of what you think about him, okay, allowed us to do televisits without having to jump through 9 million hoops in order to do it. We were able to do it like that. We could do it on our cell phones if we wanted to. So what do? We go in that direction. And we started a whole new business of telemedicine, which was amazing. And we had more people doing telemedicine every day than probably had people coming in prior to this. So that had to do with the external world allowing us to do it. Because prior to that, we could do it. However, we had to go through this contracts and HIPAA this and HIPAA that, sign this, privacy. Trump was like, none of that applies right now. Just see the patients. Insurance, you have to pay for it. Thank you, God. Good example of what do you do? So as a result of this, do you think telemedicine is going to get more popular or less popular?
Oh yeah, no one's gonna leave anywhere anymore.
Why would you want to? Why would you have to leave your office if I can just get you on a video like this?
Yeah.
And we get it done. Your prescription is in the mail. It's at the pharmacy, right? So things like that are reasons. I don't really have an answer as to what do you do. It has to come from you, but I believe that each and every one of us already has the answers. And a lot of times the answers don't come out until you're knocked out the third time by Mike Tyson. And then you're like, I can't do this anymore. This is like, it doesn't mean that I can't beat Mike Tyson. It just means that my strategy is not working. I need a new strategy. So let me think for a minute. Let me just open my mind to what else I could possibly do. Hey, I bet you some Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy could take Mike Tyson out, and I believe this wholeheartedly,
Oh, of course.
within less than 30 seconds. There's no way he's going to stand up and try to box him. There's no way. He's going to get knocked out. So what is he going to do? Jeremy, what is he going to do?
Go for the knees or go for the
Exactly.
legs.
He's taking him down. He's going to take
Yeah.
him down within the first thing he's doing is taking him down. Once Mike Tyson gets on the ground, he's like a fish out of water.
Yeah.
Right? Don't box the guy. Why are you going to box the guy? He's the best boxer, maybe the best boxer ever, but even arguably saying, even if he's not, he's an amazing boxer, even at 54 years old. So take him down, choke him out, give him an arm bar, knee bar him, do something that he's not used to. Become proficient at something better. So if you're a mixed martial artist, you learn everything. If you're a boxer, you just box.
You learn 4 moves when you learn 4 striking moves, and that's what you're limited to, and that's all you get.
Yeah.
You don't know any takedown defense. You don't know how to do anything else. You know,
Nope.
4
Nope.
moves.
Right.
So it's funny you say that because a friend of mine, I was asking her it was probably about a month and a half ago. She's an artist. She was actually trajectorying really well, and I said, "How are you doing?" And she says, "I feel like everything I've built was destroyed so I can make it better."
What a great way to reframe things.
Oh man, and it's resonating exactly with what you're saying right now. It's just like that just popped up in my mind. I'm like, I'm taking that too. And she's like, take it. I'm like, I'm sending it out there.
So I'll add to that by saying you live in California. There's a lot of forest fires out there, aren't there?
Yeah.
A lot of forest fires.
Yeah.
Do you know the forest fires, sometimes the trees need to completely burn down so that there's room for new growth. Yeah. Sometimes everything needs to burn down so we make room for new growth, because that new growth is probably going to be better than the old trees that had to burn. I mean, it's all how we look at it. Reality is only what we perceive in our own minds. I was thinking this right before we got on the podcast. I don't know what came to me, but I remember a long time ago, me and my good friend Chris, we're from New Jersey originally. We were on the New Jersey shore, and it was one of these like absolutely beautiful days. It was hot, and I love the heat anyway. It was a little bit humid, but it was beautiful. We're in front of the ocean, and the waves are going. I mean, and to me, those times in life, there's almost nothing better. Just a still period of time, beautiful sunset, beautiful sun. It's humid, it's hot, the waves going. Anyway, long story short is he had a girlfriend at the time, and her mom was there. Her name was Ruth. I'll never forget this. And Chris, my good friend Chris, who's kind of optimistic and just a nice guy, just looked at her and said, "Hey, Ruth, isn't it a beautiful day out?" And she looked at him and said, "It's miserable." And I just never forget that, because I'm thinking, in my mind, how could another human being think that this period of time is miserable? When in my mind, it is, polar opposite. It is as good as it gets. But this woman in her mind believed it was miserable. That is the perception we all have. It has nothing to do with the external world. It has everything to do with what's going on in your internal world. So leading back again, I'm trying to bring us back to our topic. That is how we run businesses successfully. And that is how we raise our children successfully. If anyone ever asked me what was my greatest accomplishment, it would be to be a dad and to raise these 2 children. I'm still raising my daughter. My son is he's a man. He's just amazing. Speak words of how proud I am of him. And in some ways I feel humble because I don't feel like I did anything, But we can talk more to that point as to how raising children and running a business is so parallel. It's so parallel.
It is. Well, one of the reasons why I wrote my book, Parenting a Business. If you can raise a child, you can run a business. The reason why I wrote it is because of these profound statements. It's like, wait a minute. I became a successful business owner after I became a dad. Was it the why? Was it the necessity for efficiency? Was it the letting go of fear about whether or not it was going to work? Because regardless, I had to figure out how to make it work anyways. But I always say that my kids are my greatest teachers. because
Yes.
because there's someone, I forget her name, Dr. Shafali, I forgot her last name, but she talks about, she's basically a parenting coach, and she basically says our kids are not here, they're not our kids, they're individual human beings, and the greatest gift that they can give is not that we parent them, but they help us reflect back on ourselves as to how we are conducting ourselves.
Yeah.
And I always the one thing that I say about parenting, this is probably the one key thing that I believe parents are most qualified with, is that we're problem solvers. you know I read all the books, I went to every Kaiser class that they had on parenting. I didn't do shit. Excuse my French. Any parents listening to this, don't
Yeah.
listen to this in front of your 5-year-old. I didn't do anything, because the moment I learned how to change a diaper on a doll did not teach me how to
Oof,
change a diaper on a human
oof.
being.
No.
It
Well,
was-
it's, recently I've been talking about this. I say, the equivalent of that is trying to explain to somebody what a mango tastes like. And the reason I say that is because you've tasted a mango. If you've tasted a mango before, you know what it tastes like, but you cannot explain it to me. The only way to know what a mango tastes like is to experience it, period. There is no other way. The only way to explain what water feels like when you jump into it is to experience it. There is no other way. So in order to become a parent, there is no way to be a parent unless you experience it. And as I joked in the beginning of this podcast, I said, they don't come out. When they come out of your life and you look down, you're like, as guys, we're like, you forgot the instruction manual. Where is it? Because I don't know what to do now. But you experience it, and innately, as human beings who evolved over so many, millions of years, we just kind of know what to do. And sometimes we don't know what to do, but we do our best. And in doing our best, in retrospect, as my 25-year-old, I look back and I'm gonna begin with the end in mind. Just recently, this is probably about a year ago, my friend Chris, his wife, Elena, asked my son, and it was sort of like right in front of me, which is almost kind of put on the spot. She's just like, Andrew, you're doing so well. What did your dad do? What did he talk to you about? What did he say to you in order to get you to just do the things you're doing? And Andrew just sit there for a minute. My son is totally different than me. He's very cerebral. He's very kind of cool. I'm a little more emotional, up and down. I'm kind of, he's a thinker. He's always been a thinker. He just kind of looked for a minute. He didn't answer right away. He doesn't usually answer right away. He pauses and he's thinking, he goes, I got to be honest with you. He said, I'm not really so sure I remembered so much of what my dad said to me. He said, but I just watched him. And the power and all that, what I wanted to get across in this podcast is that, the old adage, actions speak louder than words, holds more meaning than it ever has in business and in raising children. They may not remember anything you've ever said to them, but they remember every damn thing you've done that affected them emotionally. So how can we impact our children? How can we impact our employees? How can we impact our customers in the most drastic way to get them to sort of just buy into our Kool-Aid, basically, right? I tell people that come on to work with me, I said, look, you may not like my Kool-Aid, but for you to work here, you got to drink my Kool-Aid. I'm sorry. At this point, I'm open to a lot of things, but I have a certain philosophy and it's not for everybody. It really isn't. And I totally respect and honor that. But to be here, you got to drink my Kool-Aid. And I'm going to tell you what my Kool-Aid is. Right? And then I explain it to them, and most of them are like, oh, that's just what I'm looking for. And most of the time it does work out. But if it doesn't, it's totally fine to me. And I love when employees come to me and say, I thought I liked that flavor of Kool-Aid, the mango. I really don't like it. This isn't for me. I love them. I say, thank you so much. I honor you. I respect you. I hope you have more success ever in your life than you ever have. I hope you learned something here. Right? So it's the same thing with parenting. You've got to develop this technique or this system of showing them more than telling them. And there's only two real emotions I consider in life. There's only really two. There's love and fear. There's love and fear. Everything is a derogation of love or fear. And so if we just show our kids love, everything else tends to fall in place. If we just show our employees love, everything, you can't tell somebody you love them when you don't love them. It doesn't get across. So we can spend hours talking about that, but I wanted to sum it up by just saying that's what it all boils down to. And if you don't have the love in you, you can't expect to give it to your children or to your employees or to your customers. So the only thing you can do is work on yourself to make sure you become more of a loving person, more of what I consider, the godly, divine type of love that I think we were all born into. It's not easy to do. It really isn't. And honestly, from a driven type yang person, it doesn't work that way. It works the exact opposite. It's the yin of just letting go of, Jeremy, those layers of ego, those layers of, am I good enough for this? Is this gonna, yes, you're good enough for this. Just because you exist, you are good enough for this. God put you in this world for a purpose and a reason, and your mind is just trying to protect you out of fear. That's all it's doing. It's trying to protect you out of fear. There's a good part of the mind, right? Your kids don't walk in front of the street because you're going to get hit by a car. I mean, that's why the mind is there. It's only there to protect us. But our true heart knows what to do. And we just have to get better at developing that over time.
It's funny you say that. So I have a bi-weekly call with someone who's been, again, I went through some dark days last year. She's the one who helped me get out of it. And I check in with her, and what you just talked about was the theme. I was kicking ass for the past 2 weeks, and I'm expecting praise. And she goes, "Why don't you feel safe?" I'm like, "What? Where did this come from?" She goes, "There's, you've been speaking for 45 minutes. There's this little space right here. You don't feel safe. Like, what is this?" And I'm like, "Well," and then we unraveled this whole can of worms. And then she goes, "Your homework assignment for the next 2 weeks is to feel safe so that you can feel open and you get to know yourself better." And the da 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 da. And here I am thinking, how am I going to get more clients? How am I going to get more exposure? How am I going to get more of this, that, and da 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 for the business? And here she is talking about what you're talking about right now, which is this looking within and stop trying to force the strategy, the da da da, and all the noise that comes along with it. So
Yeah,
I'm finding this. I'm like, this is so serendipitous right now.
Yeah, it usually is. I mean, that's how life is. And what I've realized is that in order to be a really good leader, you have to excel at dealing with uncertainty. The greatest leaders in this world, in the history of time, have always been able to deal with uncertainty better than most. So if you're going to put yourself in a position of leadership, of being a parent, which is being a leader, of being a business owner, an entrepreneur, you're going to be a leader. You better get, I don't want to curse, but Tony, you better get pretty damn good. And you better develop your skills of dealing with uncertainty. Because let me tell you something. You've been around 38 years. This is going to be 53 for me. Life is uncertain. There is nothing, in my opinion, certain about it. I know they say death and taxes. I don't even believe that's certain anymore. I just don't. I don't believe there's any certainty. And the reason I say that is because I want to excel at dealing with uncertainty. If you don't, you better take up another profession. You better be a worker bee. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to be a leader, if you want to be truly a really great parent, if you want to be a great business leader, you better get really good. You better be a black belt ninja in uncertainty. And let me tell you, there is no instruction manual on it. There's none. Just like I can't explain to you what a mango tastes like or jumping into water it feels like. There is nothing. You have to experience it. And again, after you get beat up enough times by Mike Tyson, you go, this ain't working. I'm going to go to jiu-jitsu class every single night. I'm going to get the best wrestlers in the world to show me how to wrestle. I'm not even going to box. I'm not even going to try to box because there's no chance I could get to the level of Mike Tyson at this point. He's way too good, but I know that he's definitely not good at wrestling and jiu-jitsu. It's this life cycle of understanding that, you know, we can have the greatest intention, and Tony talks about having passion. We have to have passion, but we also have to take action. And then on top of that, we have to have the right strategy. I could have all the passion and the best strategy in the world. I want to get to California. I'm going south. I'm never getting there. I'm not getting there with all the greatest intentions. I'm not getting there. You got to somehow go, I'm in Florida, man. I thought I was going to California. No, dude, you got to go west. You know what? I think I need to make a turn. And what winds up happening, like, no. I got to go south. Like our minds convince ourselves because we're so passionate and driven that we're doing the right thing because we have all the good intentions. But we got the wrong strategy. It's the wrong damn strategy. And what happens over the maturation process, at least for me, is you go, let me take a break. Let me meditate on this and let God speak to me and direct me in the right way. And then you get this sense of, I know I'm doing the right thing. And then you have to build on that. So it's full circle, raising kids, running a business. Raising kids, running a business. You have to deal with uncertainty. We are not trained that way. I would venture to say that most people's, number one need is not uncertainty. It's certainty. In this country, with all this going on, everybody just wants certainty, certainty, certainty. This coronavirus is anything but certain. It is so uncertain. It is exposing us in so many ways. I honor and love it in some ways. It's showing how unhealthy we are. It's showing how we can't deal with uncertainty. And guess what? We're either going to step up or it's going to kick our ass. And I'm all about it. Bring it on. Because winter is here, and guess what? It may suck, and we may not have as much food as we need, but we're going to live lean. We're going to get through this winter, and guess what happens after winter? Woo!
Springtime again.
Yes. Why not?
It's so funny. I was going to ask you, and then you ended up answering it. So it's like, okay, you're there. You're in another state right now. You talked about so for all the so for the rest of people who have, so for the 40-year-olds and younger who are still going through the emotions and figuring things out, you talked about something that I'm actually starting to cultivate now, and I've only been doing it for 5 months, and I'm starting to get more sense of it. So during coronavirus lockdown, the world changes, your business changes. Everything that you thought you knew and could predict has now become unpredictable. You talked about sitting with yourself and letting God speak to you. I read a book called The War of Art by something Pressfield, and he basically talks about how artists don't necessarily take credit for their work because it's not them. It's this godlike intention that and they are just the vehicle that expresses the wisdom, the joy, the beauty, whatever the expression is. So it's never about them, but they are just the conduit for it. So there is this, but for the uninstructed and the people who haven't experienced it. I do meditation. I've been meditating since I was 19. I was very blessed and fortunate to stumble upon it. Now, for the uninitiated and people who haven't experienced meditation or anything to that form, maybe it's long walks, maybe it's running or whatever the case, surfing, whatever. But there is this, I truly believe what you're talking about because I'm starting to experience it. I am starting to know what a mango tastes like because I'm starting to hear the voice, starting to feel the intuition guide me and say, Jeremy, start your podcast, no matter how many.
I love it. This is exactly what I'm talking about.
And so I understand that, but for all the people who've never really experienced it, who are going through the who are going through all the detox of realizing that they can't deal with uncertainty, when they can't deal with all of the chaos. How do we start? How do we
Yeah,
get
it's a really good question because and I appreciate you saying that because, like, again, I wish I could rewind. You know, people say, I wish I knew what I knew now back then. I don't know if that could ever happen, but if it could happen, I would, I would love to impart some of this wisdom on a 30-year-old or 30, whatever, a younger person, a
sure?
38-year-old, and say, just do this and it's so easy to do that, but it has to come from you. When people say to me, why did you go to yoga? I said, I didn't go to yoga. It came to me. Why would some bodybuilder or Italian kid from New Jersey do yoga? Makes no sense at all. Did someone talk to you about it? Did someone say to you, hey, these are the benefits of yoga, it'll open you? No, nobody did that. It came to me. For whatever reason, it came to me. And I got to be honest, when I first started doing it, I hated it. I couldn't do it. Couldn't lift my arms up. I was too big. I thought, I'm looking at all these, excuse my language, little tiny women in there like pretzels, and I'm thinking, I will never be able to do this. But it came to me. And so, again, getting back to our premise of you get beat up so much, you just have to try a different strategy. I think as you get older, you get beat up so much that you can't get up from the standing A count anymore. You just stay down. And I used to think, no, I'm never giving up. I'm not. Sometimes you have to stay down. If you break your arm, if you broke your nose, if you're knocked out, you cannot physically get up. And sometimes those are the best times in your life if you look for the new direction to go in. Most of us just like, no, I got to get back up and keep doing it. I get that. I have that mentality. But at some points in life, you get knocked out so badly that you say, you go through a dark area of your life and you go, why is this happening to me? And this is so bad, and this is so bad. And then it just comes to you that I have to try something else, and you open your mind to it. Look, one of the things, one of my favorite authors of all time is Dr. Wayne Dyer. I've read almost all of his books. I love him. He is the yin teacher in my life. And one of the things he said, which is so amazing, he took it from someone else. It was a quote. And he said, the language of God is silence. Anything else is a bad translation. And you can pay lip service to that and say, oh yeah, that sounds great. Oh, cool. I'm going to go to church. I'm going to go do this. And I honor and respect all those things. But until you really dig into that and get really, really silent with yourself. I mean, I think it was Emerson that said all of man's troubles can be solved by their inability to not be able to sit in a room by themselves for 10 minutes. And it's like, if you really believe, and if you ask, and I ask most of my patients that, they can't do it. And they'll say to me, as you're saying, how do you start? How do you start? I can't sit still for a minute. My mind keeps going. I say to them, well, could you come and bench press 315 pounds with me today? No. But could you come and bench 50 pounds today or 40 pounds? Yeah. So we're going to start with 40 pounds. We're not going to go to 315 because you can't do 315 today. Let's be realistic about this, okay? So how do you do this? Well, we're in a culture that says push. Well, you've got to develop your mind to let go. And I can tell you from doing both, it's way easier to push. Yeah. It's much more difficult to let go. So to answer your question, how do you start? Number one, you start with the intention. That is the most important thing. I intend to let go. I intend that. This is my goal. I have no earthly idea how I'm going to do it, but I intend to do it. I'm going to read. I'm going to listen to podcasts. I'm going to open my mind to this intention. And then I'm just going to start. I know I'm probably not going to be where I really want to be, but I got to start somewhere. I'm not going to box Mike Tyson today, right? I'm going to go to my beginning jiu-jitsu class, and I'm going to start this process. And don't think about this huge mountain you're climbing. You think about the daily things you can do. So that's the only way I could really break it down for most people. For me, again, it came as it's coming to you, which is exciting for me to hear for you, is that when you start really opening your mind to that, things start coming to you that I believe there's a supernatural force. I believe that things just will come into your subconscious that will direct you. Now, when they do, couple things. You have to be receptive and you have to be courageous. Because some of these things that come to you are like, oh, that sounds wacky. How am I going to do that? You just have to go for it. And as one of the greatest actors I know, Denzel Washington, says, fail miserably. Fail miserably. Just do it. Because when you fail, which I don't believe there's any failure, you learn a lesson. And that lesson accelerates your growth. And I think so much of us are so afraid to fail. So afraid to like, oops, I did it my best and it didn't work. Well, guess what? What did you learn in the process that you can take with you to go somewhere else? So we talked about it already.
I have to say something. Oh man, I'm getting chills right now. I'm serious. Like this, okay, something hit me, and I'm gonna try and sum up what you just said because I saw a visual when when you said that, you know, people when you're a I'm gonna say you're a fighter, like you're the yang, where you get knocked down, you want to get right back up, but sometimes you just have to stay down. And what the first thing that came up in my mind was all the boxing movies from Creed to, you know, even like Fight, or not Fight Club, but Snatch, where Brad Pitt gets knocked down and now he's in a pool and he's floating and he's going cerebral, you know, or in Creed 2, I don't want to spoil this for anybody. He gets knocked down and now he's on the canvas and it's just dark and it's just him. And you can hear eight and you just hear him. And there's this, so what I just got right now was this idea that sometimes silence comes in the form of defeat.
Yes.
Sometimes if you don't give yourself permission to have daily silence or daily quiet time, life will give it to you to force you to do it. Like
Amen.
I read this book, and there is and the guy talked about a client who broke his collarbone, and he basically it decimated everything he built. But it was in that moment that he decided what he was really going to do. And I've never, knock on wood, I've never really had an ailing injury to the point where I was alone and I was only with my thoughts. But I would presume that there will be dark days of like, why does this happen to me? Why, I was doing so well. What could I have done better? And then there comes the questioning. There comes the self-reflection. There comes that time when you look inward. And like you said, sometimes when you get knocked out, sometimes when the coronavirus comes, we freak out, but this gives us permission, whether we like it or not, to look in and maybe start asking different questions, maybe start praying, maybe start breathing different, maybe start searching and asking different questions of what can we do to be better than before. And when we start asking those questions from within, not from social media and from scrolling and from YouTube videos asking for other people's opinion, but looking within this time, that we get the answers, like you said, that direct us to us. So sometimes I never thought about it because I'm a pusher. I'm like, no, I got to keep going. But now I'm in this like, well, let me sit for about half an hour and let me just breathe. And I hear, start your podcast. I'm like, shit, I don't want to. Everyone has a podcast. Why would I don't want to be one of those people. And as I'm starting my first one, I'm glowing with like, oh my God, I feel so good right now. It's like, this is great.
I think a lot of what you're saying is so true in that I believe that, life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us, right? It doesn't happen to us, it happens for us. We've got to change the questions we continually have in our minds. We have to have an intention. One of the things I consistently do is because trust me, I haven't got there yet, nor have most of us got there. Like there's some level that we're not going to be frustrated. We're not going to ask those stupid questions. But what happens is we develop new muscle. And the new muscle is, instead of, why is this happening to me? Instead of even going there, like to me, that's almost like it doesn't even enter my brain anymore. Like I don't allow that at all. The question I ask myself is, what can I learn from this? Please, dear God, show me something I can learn from this. I do that on a daily basis. There probably is on a daily basis that something frustrates me or gets me, and I have to pause for a minute. And like I tell my staff, and like I'll tell you, I am not where I want to be, but I'm better than I was. I know that I'm better than I was. I say that with 100% certainty. I'm not really where I want to be because I still mess up. But I ask myself, what can I learn from this? Now, in the past, we live in an Instagram, Snapchat society. We want the answer right away, right? God doesn't do that. Just keep asking, what can I learn from this? 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 And again, it's the most wildest moments. I don't know if some people can relate to this, but it's like when I take a shower for some reason, or like when I'm walking, or early in the morning. I believe there's different brain chemistry waves. I know a little bit about that. But all of a sudden, the answer comes clear as day. I know what I'm supposed to learn from this. Why didn't I see this? And the reason we don't see most things in our lives, I use this visual, is that most things in our life are this close to our face. And then what happens is we pull them away and we go, oh my God, why didn't I see that? The reason you didn't see that is because it was right up under your nose. So I go with the idea, and I would encourage everyone to go with the idea to empower each one of us that we have all the answers inside of us. They are not outside of us. They are never outside of us. They're always inside of us. So if you go with that thought, your brain will eventually lead you there, even though sometimes I have no earthly idea what they are. Like, in some ways, I doubt it. In some ways, I'm like, I have no earthly idea. But just go with the intention that it's in you somewhere, and it's gonna come into your subconscious mind at some point. And from my experience, the longer you do this, the better it comes. And fortunately and unfortunately, there's an old adage too, the closer you get to the light, the more dust you see. It's like the more you get to this, more stuff coming out. It's almost like you think you got this, right? You think you got this? Oh shit. You think you're a badass, right? And you just become humbled really quickly. So always remain humble and keep that humility. Because if you don't, I'm telling you, the universe is gonna kick your ass. It's like, oh, you think you're a tough guy. You think you got this all figured out, right? Well, I'm gonna give you a really big challenge now and see how you deal with it. You know? So, you know, there's another thing saying, you know, be thankful in all things. Be gracious in everything. Be gracious when times are good, and be equally gracious when things aren't so good. Because every single time is there to teach you some lesson. And the lesson, in my opinion, is to create you to be the best version of yourself. And in my opinion, the best version of yourself is the authentic version of yourself. Is the baby Jeremy that came out. And all Jeremy knew was nothing else except love. Nothing else. There was nothing else. Everything else that you became, you had to learn. From your parents, from your teachers, from your friends. You learned everything else other than authentic divine love. Authentic divine love just loves everything. It doesn't matter who's around you, you just love it. And when you had to go to the bathroom, you cried. And when you're hungry, you cried. And when you were fed, you were happy. It was like we just were our authentic selves. So to get back to that, we have to unlearn a lot of shit. And you know, so many people are going to tell you, well, you don't understand my background. You don't understand. I don't. I really don't. I don't understand it. But what I do understand is you can unlearn what you learned. If you want to. If it means enough to you. And if you're courageous enough to do it. Because it's not easy. I'm not going to say it's easy, but nothing in life that I've ever done is easy, ever. It's always had some physical, emotional, something that's what makes it worthwhile. That's what makes us thrive.
Wow. Oh my God. I'm so happy right
A
now.
mouthful from me today, right? You didn't know you were going to get a mouthful from me
No,
today.
this is great. This is perfect. Oh man, I'm ecstatic. Like I can't wait to keep going. And it's 8 o'clock right now for me. And I'm like, okay, my day's just getting started. I'm like, this is how I start my day. This is what's
Yeah,
up.
it's a good way to start your day. So But I mean, I think we can kind of sum up a lot of this, because we could talk for probably, you have to stop me, because I feel like
You
but
know.
the reality is, again, getting back to the raising kids so couple key things. Number one is nobody cares what you know until they know that you care. Nobody cares what you know. Nobody could give a shit about what you know. They don't care what you know until they know you care. So that begs the question, how do they know you care? How does anybody know you care? Okay? So the way people know that we care is by being genuinely, authentically interested in them. Genuinely, authentically interested in them. Not bullshit, not like, oh yeah, I want to see you, I want to sell you something. No, I literally care about you. I literally care about you, and I'm going to listen to you. I am going to acknowledge you for who you are. I'm not going to sugarcoat you. I'm not going to tell you sugarcoating things just to make you feel good. I'm going to just acknowledge you for who you are and literally care about you. Once somebody knows that, they want to know everything you know. They want to know everything you know, because you genuinely care about them. With your children, how do they know you care about them? Okay? They know you care about them by you being present with them, by you actually looking them in the eye, by you hugging them, by telling them you love them, but show them that you love them. Do nice things for them. Show them that you care about them, that they mean something to you. And even though they do the dumbest things sometimes, okay? And this is a really significant thing. I want to tell the world about this, because it was something that was so profound for me, was that kids just want to be loved from you. If you get mad at them, they think you don't love them. They internalize it as, you're mad at me, therefore you don't love me. And so what I've learned is the distinction. I've learned to talk to my kids like this. Look, this is the exact words I would say to them. I would say, look, just because you're breathing this air, I will love you forever. There is nothing you could ever do to take away the love I have for you. But what you just did pissed me off, and I don't like it. And you're not going to do it again. You see the distinction? I acknowledge and I confirm with them that no matter what they ever do, I'm going to always love them. They don't know that. They honestly don't know that. They think because, Jeremy, you got pissed off because they did something that you didn't want them to do, that you stopped loving them for that minute. And that's furthest thing from the truth. So I separate the fact that I love them regardless, but what they did is not acceptable in my world. And I'm not going to accept it. And that has worked so wonderfully for me, because what happens is they don't ever want to disappoint me. If they do something wrong, they're like, Daddy, I'm so sorry. Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean that. I still love you. I'm never going to. There's nothing you could ever do. There is absolutely nothing. You said to me, I never want to talk to you again. I still love you forever. You said to me, I never want to see you. I still love you forever. There's nothing you can do to change that. It doesn't change. It doesn't vary. It doesn't change ever in my world. But your actions, I don't like. So your actions are different than who you are, because I know my actions are different than who I am. Some days I like my actions. Some days I hate my actions. So I'm like, damn it. What did I learn from that? Right? So those are really important things. Same thing with employees. So the parallel is, listen, I remember this was not too long ago, about 5-6 years ago, I had to fire somebody, and someone said to me, boy, I hope if you ever fire me, you won't hate me like you did with them. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Let me clarify that, okay? I don't hate them. I hate their actions. Hate them. I'm not going to stick up for their actions at all. I love them as a human being. I really don't like their actions, but I still love them. And there's nobody that ever is fired from here that I will ever hate. I will still love them. I may really not like their actions. I'll go as far as saying hate their actions, but I still love them as people because they serve a purpose here. Very powerful, profound things that I think drastically change. And again, and let me just sum it up and I'm gonna stop talking, is that children are not much different than employees. Employees are just adult children. And they probably didn't get that from their home. They probably didn't have somebody, I'm not trying to toot my own horn that I know any better because I really don't think I do. I just was blessed to come with this information that their parents, grandparents, foster parents didn't say to them, hey, I love you unconditionally no matter what, even if you screw up. They probably didn't say that to them. They probably didn't. And so this is a whole new paradigm for them. They're like, really? I don't believe that. I don't trust that, right? And then you show them. And then you show them. And then you show them. And they're like, I think this guy is actually telling the truth. I can't seem to poke a hole in it. And that's where you get loyalty. That's where you get teamwork. That's where you get success in parenting and in business.
It's funny you said that. My 5-year-old, I got mad at him probably about 6 months ago, and he looked at me and he goes, "Are you still my friend?"
Yep.
And I'm like, "Buddy, listen to me. Listen to me right now.
Yeah.
I will always be your friend.
Yes.
Whether or not you are mine. I will always," and same thing you're talking about. I experienced this. He just went through this deer in headlights. I'm like, listen to me right now.
Yeah.
I love you. I will always love you. I will always be your friend. I will always be here for you. I may not like it, but you know what? I will always be. And he goes, okay. And then every other night, I'm like, buddy, who's your friend? And he goes, you are. I'm like, that's right. No matter good or bad or indifferent, I will always be your friend. I will always be here. And he's like, and then so I'm like, I'm constantly reaffirming to what you're saying. It's like, look, there has to be the separation. That's like, look, no, I love you. Like, there's nothing that you could do. And it's funny that you talk about that too. It's like, you talk about employees and how if you treat them not necessarily like your kids, but you show them the love, respect, unconditional love, really, and acceptance of them, not their actions, it really has a profound impact on their character, their performance, and their overall well-being.
Absolutely.
I've always also said the same thing about customers to a degree. It's just like, what Tony talks about. He says, don't fall in love with your product, fall in love with your customers.
Right.
You have to get to know them and understand them. And then, as we know in business, we don't necessarily want to help everybody. We want to help the people that we want to help. And that's probably a small pie, which is still a large group of people when you scale. And so when we interact with the people that we genuinely and authentically are aligned to and want to help, then it just becomes this. So again, when you talk about the parallels of how you treat your kids and how you treat your business, all these parallels always come through. But I believe that, even with this, we started with parenting and business, but we got into truth. We got into life. Tony talked about it Tony talked about this all the time, and I never really understood this until about a week ago. He said that business is a spiritual journey. And I'm thinking, I'm thinking about profits and this and that, and I never really understood it. But when I parallel it with parenting, parenting is a spiritual journey, because again, it gives us this ability to reflect in. Can I make it to the next step? If I make $1, can I make it to $2? If I make $100,000, can I make it to $1 million? If I make $1 million, can I make it to $1 billion? And it becomes this spiritual journey. It's not about the money. It's about, can we do it? And as parents, it's like, can we be the best people that we can to be a role model for our kids? Can we show them how to do, et cetera, et cetera? And so I'm seeing all these parallels, and even with this conversation, it's really it's about looking within us. Like, we talk about parents, we talk about parenting, we talk about business, but throughout this whole conversation, I've been getting all these profound things about ourselves.
Yes, and that's what it really comes down to. As you're talking, I'm thinking, I think about this all the time, because sometimes I just have to hold back, because you might have run into this where you see, say, like, for example, some of my friends and their kids, and they're acting really unruly, and they'll say things like, I don't know why these kids do that. And I have to hold back, because in my mind, okay, or employees, so let's use the parallel. Children or employees, they're acting a certain way. And my response to that is, you trained them to be that way. You trained them to be that way, okay? 100% of the time. And I'll tell you why. Because you allowed them to do those things. Now, here's the challenge with that, okay? Because you're going to say, no, you don't understand. I know, I hear this all the time. You don't understand. my child is dot, 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 dot. My employee is dot, 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 dot. And I have to hold back because in my past life, I just feel like, you just don't get it. Now I'm just like, no, it's just, let me be patient. Let me really think about this. It's you get what you allow. And so if you try to control that with negative reinforcement, it never really works. You have to positively reinforce what they do right to get them to do more of it. It's kind of a funny story, but my dog, and he's around here somewhere, but my dog had the dog trainer come. It was really funny. He said to me, you know, they have these treats, like you train dogs on giving them positive reinforcement. He was a big, which I kind of liked. I didn't know he was at the time, but he's like, everything you do is positive reinforcement. He said, you know, if you don't want them to do something, you get them to do something you want and positively. I'm like, that makes sense. He goes, it works really well for dogs. I'm like, you know, it works really well for humans too. He's like, yeah, it really does. Like, for example, this is one of the best things he taught me. You walk with your dog, and invariably you're walking. I got a pit bull, so you know he's an intimidating looking dog, and another dog walks across the street. What invariably happens? The dogs start looking at each other. They start barking. They start pulling you, and you know, going back and forth, and it's like this struggle, right? And what do you do as an owner? You just pull them back, right? Force against force. You just keep doing this, right? No. So his idea was, no. What you do is you train him that every time he sees a dog, that he gets a treat if he looks at you. What an incredible philosophy, right? So every time he saw another dog, he would pull, and I'd say, Zeus, look, I'll give him a treat. So I conditioned him that every time he sees a dog now, that he looks at me and he gets a treat. He doesn't get a treat anymore, but he looks at me and I pet him, and he doesn't pull or bark at dogs anymore. So
Oh my God, that's great.
instead of trying to take away the behavior, which instinctually, what are you going to do? Stop it, right? That doesn't work. We train them to do. So the same thing with employees and children. If they're doing something that you don't like, you got to get them to do something that you do like, acknowledge and reward them for doing that. If that doesn't work, they're done. They don't get what they need. They're not going to get anything. Or in my opinion, in a job, they're fired, right? Because I am not going to allow you to act a certain way that is not in the conforms of what I want to be acceptable.
Oh man, I got I got a 2-year-old. He's my
Challenge,
Everest.
right?
And I'm like,
Ooh,
oh, he's my current child. I'm like, I'm thinking like, oh, I gotta use that on
yeah,
him.
it's a challenge.
So
2 years old is tough. When they're babies, it's really tough because there's not a lot of things you can do. But as they get older, they understand that they want something from you. And what they really want is your unconditional love.
yeah. Yeah,
That's
it's yeah. And but as you're talking about, I'm like, okay, because he has a tendency to like scream at the top of his lungs. And the first I'm like, stop doing that, you know. So now it's like, okay, how do I positively? So when he stops doing it, I praise him beyond belief. But I just so, anyways, that's a great
Oh, you want to
philosophy.
hear? I got a really good story for that. How I broke my daughter out of that. This will be good for you, but
Yes, please.
you're gonna think I'm crazy. But I got to give you this story because this literally transformed my relationship with my daughter and I.
Okay, bring it.
Literally, that's how important this story is. So you know, I'm not with her mom anymore. So I get her on the weekend, and we're going to dance class. I'm going to try to sum this up quickly. I get her all ready for dance class. Get her in the car. We drive over there. And I forgot how old she was, but she was probably, I want to say 6 or 7, you know. So she knew enough. We get to the dance class, you know, I park the car, I get ready to go out. I look at her and she says to me, I don't want to go. And I said, what do you mean you don't want to go? I don't want to go. Okay, this is a defining moment in our lives. And I say, well, I got you up, I got you dressed, I paid for this class. And so if you don't want to go, I'm going to go. And she says, what do you mean? I said, well, if you don't want to go, you can sit here and I'm going to sit in the class. She said, you would never do that. I said, oh, really? Yes, I am. She said, oh, well, someone's going to steal me. I go, oh, no, I'm going to stand by the door and watch. But anytime you want to come in, you can come in. But I am not going to not go to this class just because you don't want to go. She throws a temper tantrum. I closed the door. I went into the day. I never in my life thought I would do this. I sat in the dance class for an hour. She did not miss a beat of crying for an hour straight. I go back into the car. She's like as black as your hat, and you're like black. She was screaming so loud, telling me what a horrible dad I was. I put the music on really loud. I got home. She started telling me she hated me and I was a terrible daddy. And I just was calm. And I looked at her and I came back in the house. I sat on the couch. She started screaming. And I looked at her and I said, when you're ready to act appropriately, you can come back down. Until then, you go into your room. She says, I hate you. She went up in her room and she was slamming things and everything else. And I sat there thinking to myself, what the hell am I doing? But I stood my ground. About 45 minutes later, she came down on the couch. Again, this is a defining moment in our lives. She put her head on my shoulders, was calm. I looked at her and I said, are you ready to act appropriately now? And she said, yes. I said, did you get everything out you had to get out? She said, yes. I said, good, I'm so happy. I kissed her, I hugged her, I told her I love her. I've never, ever had an issue with her since then. Wow. So who in their right mind would do that for their child? I did it with the intention that I am not allowing her to dictate what I deem acceptable. And so she wanted something from me. She wanted to control me and test me. And I said to her, oh, no, 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 no. I'm your dad. And this is unacceptable. And when you're going to act acceptable, you're going to get a huge reward. But if you don't act acceptable, I'm ignoring you. And so to me, that was a metaphor for our relationship. And at this point now, she's the sweetest thing in the world. And she says to me, I always say to her, I go, sweetheart, you're just, I acknowledge you're always so unbelievably sweet. I'm so gracious for that. I'm so glad. And one day she looked at me and she goes, Dad, I don't ever want to see you mad at me again. I said, what do you mean? She says, because when you get mad, it's just scary. And I said, well, how do you know I'm mad? And she says, I just look in your eyes and your nose gets really wide and these veins start coming out of your head. And she goes, I just get so scared. I don't ever want to see that again. I go, good.
The dad stare. We all know it.
So, you know, I didn't read that out of a book. I don't even know if it was the right thing to do. But for me, it was the right thing to do.
Amen.
And it worked. I'm a pragmatic person. If it works, do it. If it doesn't, change your strategy. And that's literally what we've been talking about. If it works, do it. If it doesn't, change your strategy. But don't ever stop doing something. Yeah. Because when you do something right, it's so self-motivating. As creatures of habit, we love positive reinforcement. We do something right, we want to do more of that, right? You lift weights and you gain muscle, what do you want to do more of? I want to lift more weights. Why? This is great. You know, I'm a martial artist and I can kick and do all this stuff. Like it just comes natural to me. What do you want to do more of? You want to do more of it. You go to yoga and it sucks, you don't want to do it because it sucks, it doesn't feel good. Then all of a sudden you get better at it, you're like, okay, well, I got this. So
that's what Tony says. It's like happiness equals progress.
Yes, it's not perfection, it's progression.
Oh man, David, this was the best way to start off the next chapter. Oh man, this was great. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Just for a simple plug-in to wrap things up, how can people find you?
Oh, you can find me, let's see, you can find me on Instagram. Wait, what is my Instagram?
You know a real entrepreneur when he doesn't know his handles.
I don't even know my Instagram, but you can find us at Innovative Health and Wellness on Facebook.
What's your website?
InnovativeHealthAndWellness.net.
Okay. And
our Instagram is InnovativeHW. InnovativeHW. Innovative HW is on Instagram. I am more of a business social media person, not a personal social media person.
Sure.
I believe it's great for business, for me personally, as we talked about, and I try to live and not just talk about. Amen. I try to just keep my life private and literally like do my own thing. But business, I want to bring all this information out to help people any way I can.
Well, thank you for taking some
Thank you.
time out of your day. This was, again, I'm glowing right now. I'm going to be walking on water for the next
Awesome, dude.
few weeks and take this to the masses. And I'm grateful for you. This is there's probably going to be a part 2 to this.
Oh, come on,
That's
please.
like, we're going to do another one of these. You're going to be a regular on here.
I've got too much in my head to like talk about.
Let's do
And,
it.
and my thing is, I just want to end by saying this is that, again, I don't think I know it. I love opposing opinions. I love
So do I.
the challenging stuff. I really do. I'm never opposed to that. As a matter of fact, I welcome it. I love that because that's how I learn. I may have very strong beliefs on things, but they're very flexible. I am becoming, what is it? I am in ascended mastery training for uncertainty. Right? So it's like, when people say, God, this guy flip-flops all the time, I'm like, no, man, I'm just growing.
Yeah.
If I believed something 10 years ago that I found out not to be true today, I'm not going to stick to my 10-year-old belief just because I had it 10 years ago. I go, no, I came to a new understanding. I've changed that. Well, a lot of people don't like that. They look at that as a weakness. I look at it as a complete and total strength.
Yeah.
You hear it all the time in political's world. Oh, he used to say this, now he says this. And your problem with that is? You know what I mean? Like, and your problem is they grew? Like, they came to a new realization and you haven't? So you just wanted to stick to the same status quo forever? Again, I believe most of our culture is stuck in this certainty mentality. We just want everything to fit in a box and be certain and be safe. And I get that. We all have a certain need for that. But we've given up a lot of our freedoms for security. And I'm a freedom kind of person, not a secure kind of person.
Amen. Well, I don't know how to end this, but okay, let's end it. Okay. Thank you. Okay, we're logging off. Thank you so much. This was podcast number 1 of many. And Mr. David Orlando, you are the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeremy. It was awesome.